The rain poured relentlessly that evening, painting the city streets in blurred streaks of neon light. Grace had been running late, her heels tapping frantically against the wet pavement, her umbrella doing little to protect her from the heavy downpour. She glanced at her watch again, her heart sinking. She had promised herself she wouldn't be late tonight, but the day had been unrelenting. Emails, calls, and a never-ending torrent of responsibilities had conspired against her. By the time she stepped into the dimly lit, cozy restaurant, her hair was damp, her coat slightly askew, and her mood frayed to the edges. She scanned the room for her reservation, a small table near the corner, where the dim candlelight flickered softly against the wooden panels. Her eyes caught a man sitting alone, staring at a menu, completely absorbed in his own world. Without thinking, she walked straight toward him. He looked up as she approached, startled for a brief moment before giving a polite, hesitant smile. "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong table," she said, her voice tinged with an apologetic laugh. She didn't want to intrude, but the sight of him sitting alone, so utterly absorbed in his solitude, made her heart tighten in a strange, unexplainable way. But fate, it seemed, had a plan far beyond her understanding. The man looked at her, confusion softening into recognition. "No," he said quietly, his voice calm yet carrying a weight that made her pause. This is the right table." That single unexpected line changed everything. Grace felt a flutter of disbelief, mingled with curiosity, and a strange warmth that she hadn't felt in years. She sat down across from him, unsure why she felt so compelled to stay, yet unable to resist the pull of this unplanned encounter. Before she could gather her thoughts, he introduced himself as Daniel. His presence was calm, steady, almost grounding, contrasting sharply with the chaos of her day. He didn't speak much at first, letting the silence settle between them like a comfortable blanket, punctuated only by the soft clinks of cutlery and the distant hum of other diners. Grace found herself studying him in the quiet way people sometimes do when they meet someone who inexplicably feels familiar. His eyes held depth, years of experiences, struggles, perhaps even pain, but they also carried a spark of gentleness that made her feel unexpectedly safe. As the evening progressed, small fragments of conversation broke the quiet. Daniel spoke of his work, a life filled with ambition, late nights, and quiet disappointments. Grace shared glimpses of her own struggles, the daily grind that left her feeling unseen, and the lonely moments that no amount of friends or small joys could fill. And then, without realizing it, hours passed and the restaurant grew quieter, the world outside fading to a distant murmur. Somewhere between dessert and a final sip of coffee, Grace felt a shift. The weight of her day, her week, her life's endless pressures seemed to lift, replaced by a fragile hope she hadn't dared to feel in years. Daniel wasn't just a stranger. He was a presence that felt almost like a reminder that life still held unexpected kindness, even in the smallest, most ordinary moments. She remembered the many times she had been hurt, disappointed, or overlooked. Relationships that had started with promise only to crumble under the weight of expectations and misunderstandings. She remembered the nights she had cried herself to sleep, wondering if life had any surprises left for her. And now, sitting here across from Daniel, there was a quiet magic in the simplicity of shared presence, a subtle reminder that sometimes the universe had its own plans, waiting to surprise you when you least expected it. Daniel, too, had his own battles. He was a man who had carried responsibility on his shoulders like a heavy cloak, a man who had sacrificed love and leisure for ambition, and in doing so, had grown used to solitude. Meeting Grace was like encountering a sudden, bright warmth in a world he had thought was permanent gray. He noticed the way she laughed softly, the careful way she listened, the glimmer of hope that seemed to flicker in her eyes. He couldn't explain why, but he felt drawn to her in a way that was deeper than attraction. It was a pull of kindred spirits, of two people who had been navigating life's harsh tides, finally finding a brief harbor in each other's company. Hours melted into what felt like moments, and neither of them wanted the evening to end. When the waiter approached to clear their table, Grace felt a pang of reluctance. She didn't want this moment to vanish like a fleeting dream. She glanced at Daniel, who seemed to sense her hesitation. He reached across the table and lightly touched her hand, a simple gesture that spoke volumes, and Grace felt her heart lurch with a mixture of surprise and longing. "I know this sounds sudden," he said quietly, "but I feel like I've been waiting for this conversation, this connection, longer than I can remember." Grace's throat tightened, emotions swirling like a storm she hadn't anticipated. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope, not just for love, but for the possibility of being seen, truly seen, and valued for who she was. She had spent too long protecting herself, hiding from disappointment, and doubting that life had any surprises left. And yet, here he was, a stranger who felt like a turning point. By the time they left the restaurant, the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, the night air fresh and tinged with the scent of wet earth. They walked side by side, their steps synchronized in a silent understanding, a new chapter unfolding in real time. Grace found herself laughing at a joke he made, and the sound felt liberating, like she had shed a heavy, invisible weight. Daniel, too, felt a stirring of emotion he hadn't allowed himself in years, a quiet joy that was both thrilling and terrifying. Days turned into weeks, and their connection deepened in ways neither of them had anticipated. Shared coffees, long walks, and late-night conversations became their sanctuary from the world. Grace realized that love wasn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it was about the quiet moments of understanding, the gentle touches, and the reassurance that someone truly cared. Daniel discovered that letting someone in didn't diminish his strength. It enriched it, adding warmth and light to a life he had thought was meant to be lived in solitude. But life, as it often does, tested their newfound happiness. Grace's past insecurities resurfaced at times, the fear of disappointment lurking in the corners of her mind. Daniel faced pressures from work, demanding schedules, and old habits that reminded him of the solitary life he had once embraced. Yet each challenge only brought them closer, teaching them resilience, patience, and the power of choosing kindness in the face of uncertainty. One evening, as the sun set behind the city skyline, painting the clouds in hues of pink and gold, Daniel and Grace sat on a quiet bench by the river. The world around them seemed to pause, and in that stillness, they understood the depth of their bond. Daniel took Grace's hand in his thumb tracing gentle circles on her knuckles. "I don't know what the future holds," he said softly, "but I do know this. I'm grateful I sat at this table that night, even if I thought it was just a random seat." Grace leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and allowed herself to fully embrace the moment. "Sometimes," she whispered, "the wrong table leads you to the right person." And in that truth, they found a quiet, enduring joy, a reminder that life's most profound moments often arrive when you least expect them, guided by fate, patience, and the courage to take a chance on connection. If this story has made you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement helps us share more heartwarming stories like this one. Weeks later, as they navigated life together, they realized that the magic of that rainy evening wasn't just in the coincidence. It was in their willingness to be present, to trust, and to open their hearts despite the fear of disappointment. Daniel learned to celebrate vulnerability as a strength, and Grace learned that hope could be found even after long periods of solitude and struggle. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, and challenges continued to arrive, as they always do. But they faced them together, hand in hand, hearts aligned in the quiet knowledge that sometimes the universe's plan is far better than anything we could have imagined for ourselves. As the story comes to a close, remember that each moment holds the potential for unexpected joy. Never underestimate the power of small acts, of opening your heart, and of letting life surprise you. If this story touched your heart, please engage with this video, comment, share, and let us know how it made you feel. Comment below with your thoughts because we love hearing how these stories inspire hope and faith in the goodness of life. And as they walked away that evening, side by side, the rain finally ceased, leaving the streets glistening like polished glass, reflecting the light of possibilities yet to come. Grace smiled, knowing that a wrong table had led her exactly where she was meant to be. And Daniel, holding her hand, felt the quiet miracle of fate and how sometimes the smallest decisions can change everything.